Well, we just saw Nosferatu. I love Robert Eggers. He's so artful.
He makes his own movies,
He's
like,
just
of course,
so
yeah.
meticulous.
And he wanted to make this film, and he's the perfect modern director to make
Mhm.
this film, Nosferatu.
Yes,
I
good
mean, if
point.
you watch The Witch or The Lighthouse, I'll forgive him for was it The Northman or whatever that
Yeah, I
Viking
didn't
one?
super love The Northman, but it had its moments and it's Eggers, but that's not the material that works with him, I think. That's just me saying that. But I mean, he
Yeah.
probably thought it did. I want to see him in more like, I don't know, what would you say, more
Gothic,
gothic.
black
Yeah.
and white sort of. We know the story, Nosferatu. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's a vampire
Mhm.
story. Even if you never saw the 1922 film, you've certainly seen Max Schreck's Nosferatu, the way he looked,
Yeah.
and it just was just a creepy film.
Yeah.
And this one,
Creeping up the hallway with his
yeah,
mom.
exactly. And it's just that all about shadows and that sort of
Mm.
German expressionistic, form of filmmaking. And Robert Eggers loves that stuff, and he was
Yeah.
born to make this movie. So
Born
he
to make
did the
this.
modern version,
Mhm.
starring Nicholas Hoult, Bill Skarsgård, who plays, Count Orlok, who is unrecognizable in this. It's
Sadly, yes. I
yeah.
mean, the thing is he's so pretty. Why does he always want to be behind
Right?
tons of makeup where he's
Yeah.
not even recognizable? So many movies he does that. I don't
And
understand.
Tom Hardy did that too with the masks
Yeah, he
on
always has
movies.
masks on. Why are you covering up your pretty face?
Yeah, and Lily Rose Depp plays, the main, really the lead in the film in many ways,
Yep.
and Willem Dafoe as the doctor, who's
Mhm.
he was in The Lighthouse,
Yeah.
and
Yes, he was. There's a lot of stuff in the Lighthouse. I'm scarred for life from that movie.
yeah, this one's a little bit more of a conventional story in the sense
Yeah.
that it is about,
Yeah.
it's the Dracula story. If you
Yeah,
saw
I
the
mean,
original,
actually, it is Dracula, but it's not. He's not Dracula. That's where a lot of people, I think, get confused because he's not Dracula, and they
right?
don't have a lot. Some of the Dracula,
St-
what do you say,
yeah,
trademarks? They're not in
yeah,
this movie, and people are like,
right,
"Well, what?" So it's like there isn't that. He's not the suave count who's seducing, and
yeah,
he's more of a monster who's suffering and
right.
having to live a really long time and having this is how he has to live. It's not like he's this, oh, I'm a bloodsucker and I can seduce women, but he still can. He's still oddly compelling as a person.
Yeah, well, he has this. He's not a
He's
handsome
sexy,
guy.
but Bill Skarsgård can't not be sexy, really, no matter what he tries to do. So in a way, he still had it, and he's very tall, so that helped too. So,
Tall. The voice is very sort of this dark, deep, sort
it
of
is.
guttural, demonic but strangely soothing voice.
Yeah,
And Lily Rose Depp's character sort of,
yeah,
early on in her life falls in love with that, and
yes.
there's that connection. And
Yeah, and
Nicholas Hoult played.
she's always
You,
sort of had this sort of extra perception kind of thing going on, so she was a little
right,
more susceptible to that aspect. And yeah, and by the way, you guys, we're not gonna. This is a non-spoiler. We just
yes,
had to talk about it. So this is basically us just discussing it together. We haven't talked about it, and I just
right.
wanted to hear Mark's take on it because I saw it and I was so blown away by just the tech, the craft, the
It's
beautiful unique look of the film, how the black and white was shot, like with a kind of technology where it was night but not night, and it really felt like moonlight, like this kind of blue cast on everything. The cast just, ugh,
it's
I was
kind
just
of a
watching, just soaking it up, going, "This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen."
It's kind of a spellbinding film. See it at the theater
Oh,
if you
see it in the
can,
theater.
because it really is one of those movies that benefits by the big screen. You
Yeah,
really are enveloped in this world that is very dark, even like you said, in the
yeah,
scenes that are in the daytime, it's
yeah,
dark. Because this is, Victorian times, and the rooms are dark,
yeah,
and the people are wearing these heavy clothes, and there's sort of this pall of everything. Nicholas Hoult plays
yes.
her husband, and his job is he's been, I think it's an insurance company or something, or real estate, to go to Count Orlok's mansion and
So
sign something.
unreasonable. Like, he had to travel by horse in like winter, like to this castle that was like a week away, 3 weeks. It was insane that
But
they
there's
would make him do this, but he was so desperate to please his boss because he was kind of new. He's kind of sweaty and nervous. He doesn't know what to do.
he wants to buy a house. But there's one scene, I'm not spoiling anything, but there's a scene where he finally kind of goes into like the forest before
Yeah.
we get to
Yeah.
his like mansion, and it's immediately you go, oh boy, turn around, dude.
Not good. Don't do it. I know there's so much wrong. He meets these gypsies or something. I don't know. And then
And
you're like,
that's
he's like, "Can I stay here?" And you're seeing the setup going, you do not need to stay here. I don't care if you have to freeze to death. Let's stay in this terrible house.
Right. But then the next day he wakes up and they're
Turns out
gone.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, and beyond that, I mean, you probably know the story, but we're not going to tell you. You should watch the film for yourself. But it is gorgeously directed, and the set design and production design is first rate. The acting, so I thought Lily Rose Depp was quite good. I
She
think
seemed very haunted. Like, I felt like, and apparently there's she does some great physical, like the physicality of this woman. So she had to kind of contort, like she was having kind of these kind of seizures or these
right.
connections and the weird, supernatural stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, so she's doing all these contortions and this weird movement, and like that apparently was done in camera. Nothing, they didn't do any effects, they didn't speed her up. They didn't do any CGI. Like that was her doing that. And that was like so disturbing to see that, because when you're watching it, you can just subconsciously tell when they're using CGI. And the fact that she did that, I'm like, I was getting kind of a little bit like creeped out by it, because it looked like she was actually doing it, which she was. And so there's something about a person pulling off that strange, like purposeful weirdness, this contortions. Oh my God, it's so creepy. It's just wrong. It's just wrong.
Your brain knows. Your brain knows that's legit. Yeah, that's not a fake.
And you were talking about too, like how it's a dark movie. The other thing I loved about this, usually when you watch a movie, you're not thinking about the lighting. Lighting, whatever. You're just watching the action. What I loved about this is that you could really appreciate, again, the Eggers touch of like everything being so beautiful and meticulous and real. It really felt like it was being lit by candlelight, or it was being lit by something coming through the window. Like it never felt lit by soft boxes in the room. It always felt like you were actually seeing someone in a room with a candle, and that's it. There's no special lighting. Like it was so beautifully done. Like I don't know how. He's just one of those guys. Like you see his movies, you're like, I mean, I don't even care what's happening in the movie because they're so well done. I mean, The Witch, Black Phillip is one of my most favorite animal characters of all time. Apparently he was in that. He's like black goat that's in The Witch, who's apparently kind of Satan's kind of way into the
right.
And they have those scary eyes, right? Ghosts just have those weird sideways pupils that are real weird. So he was this goat that they found, and the goat was apparently very obnoxious, and they couldn't really control it because it's a goat. So they were trying to act with it, and was running around attacking people. So like people were getting injured because the goat would run and jump and butt them with its head, and that was actually happening. So people were a little afraid of Black Phillip, but he was spectacular. And I actually have a Black Phillip t-shirt. I want to find more. And his whole thing, live deliciously, perfect phrase.
Right.
I don't know who thought of that. My God, thank you, Eggers, for that little gift. And now he's bringing more gothic supernatural to this, and that's why I was so excited, because please. So he did some great stuff with rats in this.
He does some great stuff with rats in it.
And he used real rats, apparently.
Absolutely.
Real rats. I was reading a thing saying they were rats behind a plexi so they could separate the rats from the CGI rats. So they didn't want the rats to run
interesting.
away.
Okay.
So they did all this kind of technique. So what I loved, you can tell when there's a real rat, because I was kind of watching it, you're automatically looking for the fake rat. I'm like, these are real, and they were real. So there was a scene where Orlok is coughing, and the coffin's filled with rats. I love rats, and I was kind of like, whoa, that's a lot of rats.
It's a lot of rats.
It's like, what I got. So that was just disturbing. So those were real rats. I was crazy. Oh my God.
It's the good point about the special effects. Like it really felt like a movie that was, made like in 1935 before
analog,
there were effects.
Right?
It felt very analog, even though we know it was just made. It's a brand new movie, but it doesn't feel like that. Even the opening, like, when they show whatever the emblems, it's like an old fashioned sort of, as the movie starts, it has a black and white vibe of something from the 30s. Yep. So you're really enveloped in that world that this movie feels like it was made 100 years ago, and it's set 150 years ago. So you're at the time, you walk out of the theater disoriented because, color, and it's 2025.
This was like, you get completely like enveloped by this. And what you're saying is such a good point, because the movie felt old and new at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think because a lot of it shot on actual locations, that the effects weren't too polished, that they felt, like Hollywood, like the big hand coming over the city looked so like oddly fake and weird, like that vision. But it felt like the old movie. It felt like the 20s movie, but it totally worked inside this cool gothic construct. God, it was just
the sets were great.
And the actors were great too. Like we're talking a lot about the tech because it's so striking. But I loved Nicholas Hoult, who's usually, I loved him in The Great. He's very formidable when he wants to be. Like he's not but he was very vulnerable in this, like very scared, and like, can I handle this?
He was great. And Willem Dafoe was in a smaller role. He plays this doctor, and he's really just fantastic.
It's so good.
And Aaron Taylor Johnson plays his, you know, I can't remember her character name, but her husband, and he's really good as sort of this, like, the not know what's going on here, like, why is this happening? You know, that
All right,
kind of stuff. Well,
that guy was a saint, number one. His friend, where he let her come live at the house,
Yeah.
those people destroyed his life.
I know.
Like, he was living a fine life. His
I
friends,
know.
his friend.
Yeah.
I mean, the shit he brought on that family. Like,
Exactly.
he destroyed his life. Like,
I
so
know.
I like that too, that there's ripple effect to what's happening. It's
Yes.
not like
Yes.
just, the
It,
little contained. This is happening between Nicholas Hoult and the girl he's connected to,
no,
Orlok.
there's innocent people involved. You
No,
know.
there's all these special things that are happening outside, but like the rats coming in that Orlok came with, who distributes the disease, so everyone's weakened and
Yeah,
everything.
everybody's got the plague.
It
Yeah.
was all a plan. It was all part of the Orlok thing. The only thing, and this is the only,
Okay.
I'm still not sure about the mustache. I know why they gave him a mustache. It bugged me. I know it was kind of a choice. And it was but he looked more like a general, I guess, when he had this mustache. But I was just like, mustache just doesn't work on a vampire to me. I don't know.
Interesting, because I didn't really. I mean, I thought the whole look was interesting and different.
Yes, it was.
Like, as a friend, in fact, I didn't know when I was watching the movie, like, it was Bill Skarsgård. I said, "Who is behind there?" I was thinking it was this other actor, Mark Strong. Who was a British actor. Do you know him?
Yeah.
I thought it was him. I said that and it sounds like him. But then I was like, "Holy shit, Bill Skarsgård!" That nobody would ever guess that. Yeah.
So that was my only little quibble. But part of it, I feel like maybe he did it because he's kind of rotting and falling apart. Maybe the mustache is part of his, like, I'm still good looking and I'm gonna hide my rotting lips. I don't know.
Well, back in the 19th century, that was kind of the look.
No, Nicholas Hoult is clean shaven.
Come on,
it was my thing. The vampires should not have mustaches. I'm just saying.
Okay.
So it was an interesting choice, but it did set it apart. You're right, and it didn't look more like a general, and it was very distinctive and weird. And I feel like it was an interesting. It sort of threw you off a little bit, which it was the whole point of the movie. So I'm all for it.
I'm glad that they took a story that we all kind of know. And added some flourishes, things that are different to make it its own movie. But highly recommend. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, it's a dull film and it's not scary."
Who's saying that?
Oh, some reviewers. I'm going, really? You guys don't know what horror is, number one, and number two, how can you consider watching that 2 hours of that to be not interesting? It was fascinating.
See, and also
that's just somebody who doesn't like that kind of.
Oh, I'm amazed what people will say that like. I've actually read good reviews of Trap, which is the worst movie I've ever seen. So I'm sorry, but that guy probably didn't like Nosferatu.
Exactly. So it's just trust us at Cinemondo. We know good films, especially when it comes to horror and this kind of stuff. It's kind of our wheelhouse.
Exactly. I love that it's succeeding. I'm glad it's the biggest Eggers movie ever. The counter programming and having it on Christmas Day, it was just genius, and it worked because it had that weird gothicness that felt Christmassy, the winter and the gothic.
Yeah,
such a great idea to release on Christmas. I love that they did that. They could have waited for Halloween, but they didn't. They put it on Christmas, and it was a fantastic time to see it.
And see it. It's still at the theaters. So check it out. It's well worth your time. You'll be enveloped.
That's right. Highly recommend. All right. Let us know what you think of the movie in the comments.
Please do. Okay. Bye.
Bye.